Hey everyone out there, Sean McElroy here, back with our Autoline exclusives. Joining me today is Joe Harary, the president and CEO of a company called Research Frontiers. Joe, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Pleasure, Sean. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. Now, I'm not sure how many people know about the company, but I know they know about your technology. Why don't you give us a little bit about the company and the things you're working on?
Sure. So Research Frontiers invented something called SmartGlass, which is a film that has nanoparticles in it. And when you apply a small electrical voltage, these nanoparticles will line up and allow light to pass through. And it allows you actually to tune the amount of light coming through any transparent material. So it started in 2011 when Mercedes put this into series production on the SLK Roadster. And they were trying to get a little extra headroom by eliminating the pull-across shade that's typical on most sunroofs. And that was a huge success for them. So after that, they started putting it on other vehicles, the SL Roadster in 2012, the S-Class Coupe in 2014, and then they started putting us on the flagship, the Maybach and the S550 S-Class and the S450 S-Class. And along around that same time, around 2015, 2016, we also were being deployed by McLaren on first the McLaren GT and then the McLaren Spider, and then moving on to other vehicles like the Speedtail and others. And last week, Cadillac announced that they're using our technology on the Celestiq, which is
Yeah,
quite
yeah,
exciting.
Yeah, it's very cool. I was fortunate enough to try it out in the Maybach. I mean, obviously an awesome vehicle to get to experience it in. There's so many other things that you want to mess around with too, but it was just really cool. In that vehicle, it was just a touch of a button, almost like a window switch,
Right.
and it would just darken or lighten the glass for you automatically. Is that how you're going to have it work in the Celestiq, or is that going to be more of a automatic sort of operation?
I think what Cadillac's plan is to allow each passenger to have control over their segment of the window. So I imagine that you'll simply just have it on your window control button. So instead of opening your window, you could tint some or all of your sunroof also. Now, there's many different ways you could actually control our glass. If you come into my office, you'll see some glass where you could use Amazon Alexa and talk to the window and tell it to tint or not tint, which is kind of cool. I have some windows where it's hooked up to a motion detector. So when you walk over to the window, it seems to read your mind that you want to look outside, and it'll clear up the glass. And then as soon as you walk away, it starts to save energy and goes dark again. So pretty much any way your mind could conceive of to send an input to the film to tell it to switch tint, it will. We've seen remote controls, photocells, which will automatically darken the glass on the vehicle when it turns into the sun. So there's just so many different ways you could make this either automatic or manual, like you've seen in the Maybach.
Well, and then not only that, I've seen patterns that you can put in there. Even
Yeah.
in the Celestiq teaser video, they had looked like lines in the glass as well, which is very
Right.
cool.
You could do some cool things. You could put logos, you could put information. There are gesture controlled aircraft windows where you could have all sorts of readouts about time to destination and other types of information embedded right in the glass. So it's a very versatile technology. And because you're changing the tint of the amount of light coming into the vehicle, you're able to see what's on your devices a lot better. You're able to look out the window and have a better view. So it really creates a much better connection to the outside world when you want to have that connection. And when you want to block that connection because you're watching a movie or something in the back seat, you could actually darken it. And then one of the things I really like about the Celestiq is it's the first announcement of an electric vehicle using our technology. And our technology, because it reduces the amount of heat coming into the vehicle by 18 degrees. So imagine getting in your car and instead of it being 90 degrees, it's 72 and you haven't used the air conditioner. That's what our glass allows you to do. And because of that, you're using the air conditioner much less. The compressors could be made 40% smaller, so you don't have so much weight to schlep around. And also it increases the driving range of the car. So in an electric vehicle, some of the calculations I've seen can use our glass to actually increase the driving range by 5.5%, which is huge. in terms of that.
Yeah, no, very big. And especially when you start talking about being able to take weight out down the line on the vehicle, you know, not just necessarily using the air conditioning less, but if you're able to have a part that's, say, like you said, 40% smaller, there's extra weight that's coming out of the vehicle even more. So, you know, just even more of a trickle down effect that it could have is very
And
big.
one of the interesting things about putting it in the roof, like both Mercedes, McLaren, and now Cadillac has done, is that you're taking weight out of the roof too. So you're actually lowering the center of gravity of the car and making it more stable. So you actually get more headroom without raising the roof line because of that. And it makes it more comfortable, but it also, you know, promotes stability. And because you're also reducing the heat coming in and using the air conditioner less in an internal combustion engine vehicle, you're also reducing CO2 emissions by about 4 grams per kilometer. So if you look at, you know, what's happening in Europe, especially, where the regulations will penalize a car company 95 euros per gram per kilometer if they don't meet the emissions targets, 4 grams per kilometer is huge. It's 380 euros or $410 per car in avoided penalties. So it's a very interesting technology that's not only cool, literally and figuratively, but also it's environmentally friendly and can save money as well for the automaker.
And I guess one of my questions would be, how about weight? How does a roof like in the Cadillac line up, let's say, because we're talking about a fairly large piece, whether we were comparing that to either a very large sunroof or, say, even just like a steel roof, stamped steel roof?
Sure. So another automaker, Bentley, had actually done a presentation on the sunroof of the future, which would be a stationary piece of glass that extends from the front to the back of the car, much like the Celestiq. And this was a couple of years ago that they had presented this. And they had estimated that by using SPD SmartGlass technology, you could reduce the number of components by 54. So 54 less components in the car, and reduce the weight in the roof by about 13 pounds. So fairly significant lightweighting. And also remember, this is reducing the weight in the roof. So you're, you know, having better stability in the car as well.
Well, yeah. If you take the whole thing and you can reduce the weight, wow, that's going to be big for automakers.
Right. And as you saw by driving in the Maybach and pressing that button, it's pretty cool technology. It's fun, and people enjoy it a lot. The experience is always memorable.
Well, and you know what? That's a fantastic point, especially for a vehicle like Cadillac. You want something that someone's going to enjoy and tell their friends about, and it's going to be one of the defining features of that car.
Right. People never forget the first time they operate a smart window using our technology. I've been doing this for 30 years, and it's still as magical today as it was when I first started.
Well, and you also mentioned one of the other benefits of a system like this with people using devices or having screens mounted in the back of the car. I mean, how often does the sun wash out a screen, or it catches your cell phone screen and you're blinding the driver as they're going along? Something like this would be absolutely fantastic for that.
Right. And think of the challenges that an automotive designer faces today. In the old days, you could simply put your nav system inside a shielded hood that would block some of the shading so you could see it. But now we're in a BYOD, bring your own device world, where people are using their cell phones and navigating with either Waze or Google Maps or something. So the ability to actually predict where that cell phone is going to be and regulate the amount of glare hitting it becomes impossible. So if you could have your glass on your car do that, you now have a much more readable device.
Yeah, and talking about designers, I mean, we obviously talked about patterns and stuff that you can put in the glass there too, but I mean, just think of all the glass space that's in a vehicle. If you can put a pattern in there, man, designers could probably come up with something pretty sweet, I'm sure.
Right. And, you know, we've seen some interesting iterations of our technology. For example, McLaren has put this in the windshield itself, where they embed it above the AS line of the windshield, and it creates a built-in sun visor. Well, I've seen sun visors in development using our technology where you could actually use that patterning to segment it. So you could control and see where the sun is. And let's say the sun is high on the horizon, only the top third maybe of the sun visor will darken because the sun is high up. Let's say it's a little lower on the horizon, closer to sunset, then maybe all three of the segments would be darkened, and you could adjust that with something as simple as a photocell. And then, also if you're driving in a tunnel, imagine if all the glass in your car darkened, and then when you got into the tunnel, it cleared up, and then as soon as you got out, within a split second, it'll darken again, so you don't get blinded by the glare.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was going to actually be one of the questions I have. I'm 6'4", so talking about sun visors, oftentimes when I'm flipping them down, they're either come down or I can't, then push them even further forward to get more view out of it. And having something that would automatically do that for you, man, as someone that's tall, I love the thought of having something like that in a vehicle.
Right. A sun visor for a tall person in a vehicle really can block most of the view, and that's not ideal. So this allows you actually to control and only really tint the part you really want to have tinted.
Yeah, and then you also bring up talking about going through tunnels. It also makes me think about AVs when autonomous vehicles come along. If you're in AV mode, hey, maybe you don't need other people seeing into your vehicle, or it is really bright out and you want to darken all the windows. I think that could be really cool too.
Yeah, and one of the things to remember is we know more about autonomous vehicles than we think because we've been in them. Unless you're a pilot, if you're flying in a plane, in essence, for all practical purposes, you're an autonomous vehicle. So what are people doing? They're looking out the window, or they're watching a movie, or they're checking their emails. And each of those scenarios requires a different lighting setting for the window. Now imagine if the car can do this dynamically with you. That's how this would work. So in an autonomous vehicle setting, sometimes you're going to want to look out the window. You're bored. You're not driving the car. Also, when the car hands off to the human, that's often a very critical time in safety, is when you go from autonomous to human driven. And our windows could actually act to wake you up so that, maybe they start flashing, or maybe letting in a little bit more daylighting to increase the alertness of the driver, a few minutes before the handoff. And this way, by the time the handoff occurs, the driver is better suited for, taking control of the car.
Man, I got to tell you, I love the sound of that. It's just amazing the applications that people will come up for technology like this. It's very inspiring.
Glass could have been so smart.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, you got to figure out a way to apply it to almost anything and everything that you can, because it's just too cool. Yeah, so, cool. Joe, we've rocketed through all the questions I got. I want to ask you, are we missing anything here? Anything else you want to talk about?
Well, besides cars, you have trains, planes, boats, and consumer electronics, and even protecting priceless artwork in museums. So it's a pretty broad-based technology with wide applicability, but we're really pleased at what Cadillac is doing with it.
Yeah, like I said, I had a great experience with it when I got to use it. I'm sure when the Celestiq comes out, we're going to see plenty more reports and people just singing the praises of the SmartGlass. So I definitely look forward to that.
Me too, Sean. I'm really looking forward to how the future of automotive looks with our technology.
Very cool. I really want to thank you for joining me today. I do appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. I really enjoyed it.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks again.